Vikings and Eagles. These are two teams I think we were, fairly high on going into the season. And we kind of looked at, we always talked about what is Justin Jefferson going to look like in this, and it wasn't even like the Cooper Cup role because he still played like 75% of his snaps like on the outside. He wasn't, in this slot that often. But what Minnesota did to just like work through the Green Bay defense. Green Bay was going to sit back in zone. They had all of those. They played, so much quarters. Almost half their snap was in quarters, and all Minnesota did, they didn't motion a lot, like 54% of their snaps, and that was 13th. But they used the right motion all of the time, and they just kind of knew what the coverage responsibilities were going to be, and they used the motion to manipulate all of that coverage. So you have that first touchdown on the goal line. They motion Thielen first to see if it's man or zone. No one goes over with Thielen, so they know it's going to be zone. So then at the snap, they motion Jefferson. That's a play Green Bay use all the time with Devontae Adams. That jet motion at the snap to make him wide open, and Jefferson's wide open because no one follows him after the snap. And then you look at the other touchdowns, they were using crossers and just kind of manipulating all the coverage responsibilities, right? The one, no one follows Jefferson. And then the second big play he has, it goes for like 20 yards. The leverage there, because the safety has to come down in that part of the field. And you're just like, when you have a safety coming deep and Jefferson crossing, there's just not going to be a guy there. So I'm really interested to see now what that looks like against Philadelphia, who uses a lot of, the same, coverages that Green Bay wanted to. So I'm sure they're going to be a little more prepared. There might not be as many communication breakdowns, but kind of the point of this Minnesota offense is that they're going to make you have communication breakdowns because they're going to make you pass off some of these routes. So when you look at Philadelphia, they used, almost 38% quarters in week one, and that was second behind Green Bay. So like they're going to see some of the same work. So Philadelphia like really has to be just more. They have to be looking more at the responsibilities and be like a lot more sound in how they pass off some of these routes, because if not, the Vikings are just gonna pick them off and have no problems. Like Kirk Cousins did not have, like he wasn't bombs away. Like Kirk Cousins had one of the lowest ADOTs in the league in week one, because like they just were picking the empty spots in coverage, and that's all they needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of what we wanted to see from the Vikings week one. And who knows what would have happened if the Packers would have been more game and had more punch in the second half to even kind of keep pushing them, because they kind of turned everything off at a certain point in that game too. The Vikings have that vibe of like, if you're going to be a zone-based defense, you're going to be in some trouble. But then what do you do? Like, what's the counter, right? Like the Eagles have good defensive backs, but you also don't want Justin Jefferson just in one-on-one coverage either. So like,
right.
It's a really kind of a tight box to be in. I mean, but he was buck naked on like 4 or 5 targets. Like, I mean, he actually he put a move on a ghost defender because he thought someone might. He was like shocked. He was
the one where he called, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to make someone miss," and it was just like, "Oh no, there's no one there."
Ran back. Yeah, there was just nobody there. If you're going to play zone against the Vikings, though, I mean, you've got to have some more communications. And the Eagles they had some issues in week one.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have 2 safeties that haven't spent a lot of time together, also playing with the Eagles in the back end. But yeah, Jonathan Gannon has been, since he's been with the Eagles, they've run the 8th highest rate of zone coverage. So like, is he going to come out of his shell? But like I said, I mean, if you're the Vikings, like you're also just inviting, like, yeah, Darius Slay's a great player. James Bradbury is a really good player. But like, I also will be happy if my guy, Justin Jefferson's in one-on-one coverage with those guys.
Right.
So yeah, maybe we see a little more of the ancillary guys. We see a little more, stuff rolled to Justin Jefferson to account for him. I mean, Joe Barry just didn't make the proper adjustments though in that game at all. You hear Jair Alexander after the game talk about it. There was some frustration definitely going on back then. We'll see when these two teams play again. I'm curious to see how the Packers will approach it.
Yeah, but that was the thing though, where like I think Barry and LaFleur said, like, yeah, we could play man coverage, but then that changes everything we want to do on defense. So you can't be playing, quarters as much as you want. Like that's a quarters based defense. So that's really like what's going to stand out with this the Eagles defense, because like it's a very similar structure. So if they do want to play man, like who exactly do you have on him, right? Like, because you have two guys, but do you want to potentially waste the guy and completely change the structure of your defense? And like I think like that's going to be the type of, and that's the whole point of this Justin Jefferson in this type of role, right? Whether it's like the Cooper Cup role or whatever, but in this type of offense, when you have this extremely talented wide receiver who can win one-on-one, like you said, like it's not going to be a mismatch when the defense is throwing a guy one-on-one. Like the offense still has the mismatch there because it's Justin Jefferson. So when you have a guy who can win one-on-one, but then you're potentially scheming him up on all of these, zone beaters that are screwing with your responsibilities, and really testing the communication on defense, like that's the entire point of like why we were excited about Justin Jefferson. And like we definitely got proof of concept in week one. So it's like, and then they were doing a lot of things too in Minnesota. They weren't running a super high rate of 11 either, which we kind of thought, they might. They were using some 21 looks, some 22 looks, getting empty with some different personnel packages. So like this is going to be a lot of fun with this Minnesota team, because I think they're always going to have the right answer, I think, and they're not going to be forced to do things that they don't want to do, because I think they're just going to have that schematic advantage like in a lot of games.
Yeah, these a lot of play action too, a lot more than we've seen the Vikings use in years past. Yeah, it's just everything we wanted to see from the Vikings we got. And if the Packers would have put up more of a fight, we probably would have got to see a lot more fireworks.
Yeah, I mean, 85% of Kirk Cousins' passes were 10 yards past the line of scrimmage or under. Yet he still had 6 passes of 20 or more yards. Right. So like that's kind of the thing. Like they were just sitting and picking off, and that like they're going to be happy to do that all year. And I think like this is probably a defense they can do that to. But
imagine when this team gets like better wide receivers around Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, like that too. Thielen's good for what he is now. He's like not the peak Adam Thielen. The KJ Osborne can be okay, but like that's fine for like a third guy. But yeah, if they ever like have good like second or third guys, and that's, I mean, we kind of saw that like with the Rams last year, right? When they got Odell Beckham, like how much more that opens up Cooper Kupp, because now you have to worry about another receiver. But again, like the only receiver the Packers had to worry about was Justin Jefferson. Like they couldn't really do it. So
that's what's crazy, is how that's the thing that's so encouraging about the Vikings, is that they don't have a lot of really good talent. And hell, they didn't even play Irv Smith. It was all Johnny Munt in the game. And Kevin O'Connell talked about, it was by design. Like we weren't going to play Irv Smith. So like, it's like, no, like Adam Thielen has had a really great career. He's a dude we root for, but like Adam Thielen at this stage right now is not a guy that's going to like win a lot on his own. So when they finally get some actual talent around here, like this thing could be really, really explode. But the Kirk Cousins haters will hate to see that.
Yeah, it's just going to be one of those, like Kirk is going to be the guy, like when you present him the right answer, like he's going to take it. And like, I just think this entire offense is going to be built around having the right answer all the time. But if we look at the other side, there was, a kind of similar type thing, right? Jalen Hurts did not throw downfields a lot, 68. 87.5% of his passes were 10 yards past the line of scrimmage or shorter. There was a lot of, short throws, but also 66.7% of his completions went for 10 or more yards. So they were able to, figure out some things after the catch. AJ Brown looked incredible. Like that's exactly what you like wanted from AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts willing to throw over the middle of the field, when you have the best in breaking wide receiver in the league there. So like they were hitting some of that stuff. Man, it's just like, I think like that is a passing offense that is going to look really good too, because like they have all of those answers, and like you can't play AJ Brown one-on-one, because like he's going to kill you no matter what. Like he had, there were some, go routes down the sideline, but he was still, being the AJ Brown and having those routes that are, going to win across the middle of the field. And Hurts he's a good enough passer where he's going to hit that. Right. we're probably eventually going to see, more Devontae Smith involvement. Like he was barely involved in week one. So like they have more options that they can expand upon too. So yeah, I'm interested to see what it looks like against Vikings defense. Again, that was like really leaning heavily into the Fangio stuff, which we thought like they had the most snaps in cover six. So where it's like the quarter half, so you're playing like a too high shell, but kind of still middle of the field closed, coverages. So I'm interested to see like what their what Philadelphia's plan is going to be against this defense, and like how much can you push the AJ Brown thing because they relied on it heavily in week one.
Yeah, the Eagles and Hurts didn't play a really clean game, and it's crazy. He still could have had so many more fantasy points, but
Right.
he wasn't super sharp though, and we're gonna have spots with Jalen Hurts, the type of player where he has accuracy issues, but his splits in game one were great against man, and AJ Brown had 105 of his yards against man coverage, 5 of his catches. But he didn't have those issues in 2021, Jalen Hurts, that is. So it'd be curious to roll over. But he was much worse when the Lions went to zone coverage and versus man. And the Lions played the most man coverage in the NFL in week one. So I'm curious. The Vikings aren't going to do that. Like this defense isn't going to probably adapt to that really at any level. So like they're going to play a lot more zone. So I feel like that's what you have to do with Hurts is you have to muck it up for him, make him make throws and make reads. And that's what the Vikings are going to do. So I'm curious to see how he responds in week two. When they actually have guys kind of around AJ Brown this week. We'll probably see some guys get involved. If you're a Lions fan, at least like Jeffrey Okudah looked competent. Like you were kind of hoping for that, like because it ran so poorly, previously. So at least you feel good. Yeah, he played a role in that Devontae Smith shutdown. But yeah, we'll probably see. Devontae Smith is going to catch 0 passes on Monday night. I'll take the over on that. They still find ways. The guy that they create creatively for is Dallas Goedert. They ran like a really great like tight end screen where he would have scored. He got tackled at the 1. That was another play. Like Hurts they had all plays at the 1 yard line where Hurts got bamboozled out of touchdowns out of guys like Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. But Dallas Goedert last year, and I talk about this a lot, like he was like their explosive play guy. It wasn't like so much Devontae Smith. Like he was like Dallas Goedert was the guy that they would scheme and get these big plays out of. Almost 11 yards per target and 15 yards per catch for a tight end is like the stuff people want Kyle Pitts to be doing. And Dallas Goedert in week one, almost 20 yards per catch, on his, he didn't get a ton of targets and a ton of looks because AJ Brown is eating so much, but he's the guy like that gets these explosive plays. And against zone coverages, like he's going to be the guy that you have to look for on Monday night to scheme open and scheme some of these big plays for. So I'm curious to see if like he becomes like a bigger part of kind of the guy, like it's less of more of an AJ Brown game in a context, but more of like Dallas Goedert to be the guy that hits those big plays for them.
Yeah, we'll see. And linebacker, might be the way you can, get in the middle of the field against, Minnesota. We'll see how the back end, they were using, Harrison Smith in a bunch of different ways. Hopefully Lewis Cine will make his debut. He was out in week one. He's a guy who I think you can add a lot to the back end of secondary when he plays. So, and the Minnesota pass rushers was fun. They were, using some of their bodies that they had, up front. Darius Smith was a force a little bit, the revenge game against the Packers.
He was playing with a mission for sure on Sunday.
Yeah. But I mean, if he's healthy, he's like the type of guy like you want around that area. So, it'll be fun to see. Like this is a really, I think, a fun, especially on offense. There's going to be 2 fun offenses that are going to work to create some of these mismatches and use some of those type of putting their guys in the position to win. Like we saw that more than I think we could have imagined week one for Minnesota. And I think the Eagles are going to, try to do a pretty good job of that too. So this is going to be, a really fun game to watch.
Oh yeah. This is the Monday night game I'm looking forward to. I mean, I always want to watch the Bills, but this is going to be tough these are going to be overlap at time in these games. It's going to be real tough because this game from a top down perspective is a lot more intriguing.